It was the middle of winter in a small town where the snow covered everything like a giant white blanket. Houses had thick smoke coming out of their chimneys. Children wore heavy coats and scarves, and the sound of snow crunching under boots was everywhere. The roads were quiet, and the only sound that broke the silence was the occasional bark of a dog or the wind howling through the trees. In this town lived a little girl named Emily. She was only 7 years old, but she had a heart that was bigger and warmer than most people around her. Emily lived with her father in a small house near the edge of the forest. The house was simple, with 2 small bedrooms, a living room that always felt chilly, and a kitchen where the smell of tea and bread often lingered. Emily's father worked hard but was often tired and worried about many things that Emily did not fully understand. What Emily did understand, however, was that she had one true companion who made her days brighter and her nights less lonely. Her German shepherd named Max. Max had been with her since she was a baby. He was more than just a dog. He was her best friend, her protector, and the one she whispered secrets to when no one else was listening. His thick brown and black fur was always warm under her tiny hands, and his gentle eyes seemed to understand every feeling she had. Whenever Emily was sad, Max would lay his head on her lap. Whenever she laughed, he would jump around as if he were laughing too. They were inseparable. One cold morning, snowflakes were still falling from the sky, covering the streets in fresh white layers. The wind was sharp and the sky looked heavy and gray. Emily was still asleep in her little bed, hugging her worn-out teddy bear. She did not know that something painful was about to happen. Her father, feeling overwhelmed by his own struggles, had made a decision he thought would make life easier. He quietly took Max outside and left him near the gate in the deep snow. His breath was visible in the freezing air, and Max stood there confused, his fur already beginning to collect flakes of ice. The father looked at the dog with tired eyes. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered under his breath, almost as if he was speaking to himself. He turned away and walked back into the house, leaving the loyal German shepherd behind in the cold. Max whined softly but did not move far. He stayed near the gate, waiting, as if he knew Emily would come looking for him. Inside the house, the silence was broken only by the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Emily stirred in her bed, the cold air sneaking through the window making her shiver. She rubbed her eyes and yawned, expecting to see Max's tail wagging at her bedroom door like every morning, but today the door was empty. She sat up quickly, her heart beating fast. Something felt wrong. "Max," she called softly, her little voice echoing in the quiet room. She jumped out of bed, still wearing her soft flannel pajamas, and hurried through the house. The kitchen was empty. The living room was silent. She ran to the back door and pulled it open, the freezing air hitting her face instantly. And there he was, Max, standing in the snow, his fur wet, his body shivering, his eyes fixed on her as if he had been waiting for her all along. Emily's heart sank. She didn't understand why Max was outside in the cold. She rushed out barefoot, her small feet sinking into the icy snow. She didn't care about the pain of the cold biting into her skin. She only cared about her dog. "Max!" she cried, throwing her little arms around his neck. Max whined happily, licking her face as if relieved she had come for him. She could feel his whole body trembling from the chill. Tears filled her eyes as she wrapped her blanket, the one she had brought from her room, around Max's body. The blanket was too small for a big dog, but it was all she had. "It's okay, Max, I'm here now. I won't let you be alone," she whispered, her voice trembling but full of determination. Her father came to the door, watching the scene quietly. He looked at his daughter hugging the dog with all her strength, her face pressed against Max's wet fur. For a moment, guilt flashed across his face, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he called out, "Emily, come inside." "It's too cold." Emily shook her head fiercely. "No, Max is cold too." "He can't stay out here," she shouted back, her voice filled with both fear and love. She held Max tighter, as if she was afraid someone would take him away. The snowflakes kept falling around them, covering her hair and shoulders, but she didn't notice. Max leaned against her, his body seeking the warmth of her small frame. He trusted her completely, and that trust gave Emily strength. She didn't feel like a little girl in that moment. She felt like someone who had to protect the one she loved, no matter what. The neighbors across the street peeked out of their windows, curious about the sight of a small girl sitting in the snow with a big dog wrapped in a blanket. Some shook their heads, wondering why a child had to fight so hard for something so simple. Others felt their hearts ache at the innocence and bravery of the little girl. Emily didn't care who was watching. She only cared about Max. She whispered to him again, "Don't worry, Max, I'll take care of you. I promise." Her breath formed little clouds in the air as she spoke, but her words were stronger than the cold wind. In that snowy yard, with her bare feet freezing and her arms wrapped tightly around her German shepherd, Emily made a silent vow. She didn't know how, but she knew she would never let her dog be left out in the cold again. She was only 7, but her love was powerful enough to melt even the coldest snow. And as the day grew colder, Emily's heart only grew warmer. For her, Max wasn't just a dog. He was family. And family was never left behind. Emily's arms were still wrapped tightly around Max, and her little body shook in the snow. Her father stood at the door, his face half hidden in the shadow of the frame. He did not say anything for a long moment. He only watched. The sight of his small daughter clinging to the dog touched something inside him, but his mind was heavy with worries that Emily did not understand. He finally sighed, his breath making white smoke in the cold air, and said in a low voice, "Emily, he's too much work. We don't need him anymore. Dogs eat too much. They need care. We can't do this." Emily's big brown eyes widened. She shook her head fiercely. "No, Daddy. Max is my best friend. He's not work. He's family." Her voice was thin and trembling from the cold, but it carried a strength far bigger than her small frame. She pulled the blanket tighter around Max's back, and Max pressed himself against her as if to remind her that he was listening. Her father rubbed his forehead and muttered something she could not hear. He looked tired, but Emily's heart was not ready to give up. She planted her feet deeper in the snow and whispered again to Max, "I'll never let you go. You'll always stay with me." The dog wagged his tail slowly, his eyes soft and trusting. Emily's little hands were red and stiff from the cold, but she kept stroking his fur. Her lips quivered, and yet she smiled at him. "See, you're safe. I'll take care of you," she said, her voice gentle but firm. Her father turned away and went back inside, leaving Emily and Max together in the yard. She knew he was upset, but she didn't understand why. In her young mind, love was simple. You keep the ones you love safe. That was all. The snowflakes continued to fall, piling up on the ground, on Max's fur and on Emily's small shoulders. After a few minutes, Emily realized Max could not stay out like this. She could not carry him inside without her father's permission, so she had to find another way. She thought hard, her teeth chattering as the cold bit her skin. "I'll make you a house," she whispered to Max, her voice full of determination. "A place where you'll be warm." She kissed his wet fur before running back inside the house to search for things. Emily tiptoed past her father, who was sitting silently at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. He did not stop her, though his tired eyes followed her as she moved quickly from room to room. She grabbed old sheets, some small pillows, and even a few of her favorite stuffed toys. Then she found a box of old wooden boards in the corner of the shed outside. They were heavy for her tiny arms, but she dragged them one by one into the backyard, her breath puffing out like clouds. Max wagged his tail, following her every move, curious about what she was doing. "It's for you," she told him with a grin, even though her cheeks were numb and red. "It's going to be your warm house." Slowly, Emily began building. She leaned the boards against the fence and covered them with the sheets. She stuffed the pillows inside and placed her teddy bear right in the middle, as if Max would want company when she wasn't there. She tucked the blanket around him again and tried to close all the sides with whatever she could find. Sticks, ropes, and even her own scarf. Her small hands hurt from the cold, but her heart kept her going. She worked for hours, ignoring the sting in her fingers and the snow soaking her pajamas. Sometimes she stopped to hug Max, pressing her face into his fur, whispering, "Almost done, boy. Almost done." When the shelter was finally ready, it wasn't perfect. The boards leaned unevenly, and the sheets flapped in the wind. But to Emily, it looked like a castle. She guided Max inside, patting the pillows proudly. "See, Max? This is yours. Now you'll be safe." Max wagged his tail happily and curled up in the little space she had made. He rested his head on her teddy bear, and Emily clapped her hands, laughing softly. "You like it? I knew you would." Her father stood at the window, watching silently. He had not expected her to do all this. She was only 7, yet she had spent hours in the freezing cold building something with her tiny hands. For a moment he felt his chest tighten, but he turned away, not ready to face what he felt. Emily sat beside Max, her back against the wooden boards. She hummed softly, trying to keep herself warm. "Don't worry, Max," she said again. "I'll feed you. I'll keep you warm. We don't need anyone else. We have each other." Her voice was so full of promise, so full of innocence, that even the wind seemed to pause to listen. By late afternoon, the sky began to turn darker. The neighbors who walked by saw Emily sitting there with her dog in the little shelter she had built. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others felt their hearts soften. Whispers started to move through the neighborhood. "That little girl loves her dog more than anything," one woman said. "Look at her. She's been out there all day." Children from across the street pointed at her, tugging their mother's coats. "She's making a house for her dog," one boy said with awe. The mothers exchanged glances, some smiling sadly. Emily did not notice any of this. Her entire world was Max, who now dozed peacefully in the shelter, his breathing calm and steady. She stroked his fur and whispered, "See, I told you everything will be okay." The snow fell heavier as evening came and the cold became sharper. Emily's father opened the door and called, "Emily, come inside now. It's late." But Emily shook her head again. "Not without Max," she shouted, her voice strong. She turned back to the dog, whispering, "I won't leave you." Her father sighed, watching her tiny figure in the snow, stubborn and brave. For a moment he thought about walking out to pull her inside, but he stopped himself. He realized she wasn't just being stubborn. She was protecting something she loved. The neighbors continued to whisper about her bravery. The image of a small girl hugging her dog in the middle of the snow began to spread. People talked about it with admiration, saying, "That child has a heart bigger than most adults." Emily, unaware of all the attention, leaned down and kissed Max's head. "We'll be okay," she said softly. Her eyes glowed with love and determination, even as the snow continued to fall around them. That night, while the cold ruled the town, a little girl's promise to her dog burned brighter than any fire. And though she was only 7, Emily showed a strength that touched the hearts of everyone who saw her. The next morning the sun rose, but its weak light did not bring much warmth to the town. The snow still covered the streets and the roof sparkled under the pale glow. Emily woke up early, her first thought being of Max. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, put on her boots and coat, and rushed outside. There he was, still curled inside the little shelter she had made with her small hands. Max lifted his head, wagged his tail, and gave a happy bark the moment he saw her. Emily smiled wide, her heart filled with relief. She knelt beside him, stroking his fur. "Good morning, Max. Did you sleep well?" "I told you I'd keep you safe," she whispered. She placed a small bowl of leftover bread and milk in front of him. Max licked it gratefully, and Emily felt proud, as if she had already kept her promise. What Emily did not know was that her act of love had already begun to spread. The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Turner, had seen everything the day before. She had watched Emily carry boards, struggle with sheets, and sit in the snow for hours beside her dog. The image had moved her so deeply that she had taken a picture from her window, a picture of the little girl hugging her German shepherd in the cold. That night she shared it on the local community page with a short message. "This is Emily. She is only 7, but look at her love and courage. She won't leave her dog, even in the snow." By morning, the photo had been seen by many people in town. Some were touched, others felt guilty for not noticing before, and many decided they wanted to help. When Emily walked Max along the path later that morning, she noticed people looking at her differently. A man passing by smiled kindly and tipped his hat. A woman carrying groceries stopped and said, "You're a brave little girl, sweetheart." Emily blinked in surprise but only smiled shyly, holding Max's leash tighter. Later in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Emily opened it and found Mrs. Turner standing there with a big smile. In her arms was a warm blanket and a bag of dog food. "For Max," she said kindly. Emily's eyes lit up. "Really, for him?" she asked, almost in disbelief. Mrs. Turner nodded. "Yes, dear. He deserves it. And so do you." Emily ran outside and wrapped Max in the new blanket. "Look, Max, people care about you too," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with joy. Max barked happily, wagging his tail, his eyes shining with excitement. Word continued to spread. More neighbors stopped by. One brought a thick rug to line Max's shelter. Another brought firewood and offered to help Emily's father make a sturdier doghouse. A boy from down the street brought some of his own dog's toys. Emily's yard, which once felt lonely and quiet, began to fill with people. People who were moved by her small but powerful act of loyalty. Emily, though shy, stood beside Max proudly. When people asked why she had worked so hard, she answered in her simple, honest way, "Because Max is my best friend. He's always there for me. I can't let him be alone." Her words were soft, but they touched everyone who heard them. Meanwhile, her father stood at the doorway, watching all of this quietly. He felt strange as he saw strangers helping his daughter, offering blankets and food for the dog he had thought of as a burden. Every time he heard Emily say, "Max is my family," something heavy stirred inside him. He began to question himself, though he tried not to show it. Max, on the other hand, seemed to sense the change in the air. He stayed close to Emily, his eyes full of love and trust. Whenever someone came near, he wagged his tail but always returned to sit at Emily's feet, as if to show that she was his world. And the little girl glowed with happiness, her cheeks red from the cold, but her smile brighter than ever. As evening came, the yard glowed softly under the streetlights. A few more neighbors stopped by, carrying extra food and supplies. Some even offered to take Max in if things became too hard. But Emily shook her head politely. "Thank you, but Max stays with me," she said firmly. The grown-ups exchanged looks, impressed by her courage. That night, Emily sat beside Max in his shelter again, stroking his fur. She looked at the blankets, toys, and food people had given. Her little heart swelled with gratitude. "See, Max? You're not alone anymore. Everyone cares about you now. But I'll always care the most," she whispered. Her father watched her from the window once again. This time, though, his expression was softer. He saw the way his daughter's love had touched the whole town. He saw how people respected her and how she glowed with pride when she spoke about her dog. A quiet thought crept into his mind. Perhaps he had been wrong about Max. Perhaps the dog was not a burden, but a blessing. Still, he said nothing. He only turned away and sat down, his thoughts restless. The next day, Emily woke up to find even more surprises. Someone had left a basket of dog treats at their door. Another had left a small note that read, "For Emily and Max, thank you for showing us what love looks like." Emily held the note carefully, her eyes shining. She tucked it into her pocket like a treasure and ran outside to show Max. "Look, people believe in us," she said excitedly. Max wagged his tail, licked her cheek, and barked happily. Emily giggled, hugging him tightly. "I told you we'd be okay." By now, almost everyone in the neighborhood knew about Emily and Max. People talked about them in the bakery, at the grocery store, even in the small church at the corner of the street. Some said, "That little girl reminded me what kindness looks like." Others said, "If a child can love like that, why can't we?" Emily did not hear all of this, but she felt the change around her. People smiled at her, offered to carry things, and asked how Max was doing. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt she was not alone. One afternoon, when she sat on the porch with Max, she noticed more children coming to play nearby. They brought their sleds and snowballs, and soon laughter filled the street. Emily joined them, Max running happily beside her, barking with excitement. The children laughed and petted him, and Emily proudly introduced him as "my best friend." That day, Emily realized something special. Her love for Max had not only protected him, it had also brought people together. She had made her small world a little brighter, just by refusing to let go of the one she loved. As the sun set, painting the snow in shades of pink and orange, Emily sat beside Max once again. She whispered softly, "See, Max? Everyone knows you're special now, but you were always special to me." Her words hung in the air, gentle and true, and though she was only 7 years old, Emily had already touched an entire town with her simple act of loyalty. As the winter days grew colder, the snow piled higher on the streets, rooftops, and trees. Emily woke up one morning to find the world outside glistening with frost. The sky was gray and heavy, promising another day of biting cold. She hurried out of bed, pulling on her coat and boots, thinking only of Max. Her little hands trembled as she opened the door, not just from the chill, but from concern for her faithful friend. Max was already waiting near his shelter, his thick fur dusted with snow. His ears perked up as soon as he saw her. Emily's heart ached at the sight of him shivering despite the blankets and toys she had provided. She knelt beside him, stroking his fur and speaking in the gentle tones only he could understand. "It's okay, Max, we're going to get through this. You're safe with me," she whispered, pressing her cheek to his wet fur. Max nuzzled her face, his tail wagging slowly, as if to reassure her that he knew she meant it. Emily realized that though she had done everything she could to keep him warm, the cold had begun to affect him more than she could handle alone. His breaths came out in little puffs of steam, and she noticed a slight wobble in his legs as he stood. Panic rose in her chest, but she swallowed her fear and took action. "I have to make him warm," she told herself, her small hands shaking from urgency and cold. Her father had gone to work earlier, leaving the house silent except for the wind brushing against the windows. Emily thought quickly. She grabbed every blanket, pillow, and warm piece of clothing she could find and rushed outside. She wrapped Max tightly, holding him close to her chest as she whispered promises over and over again. She wished she could carry him inside, but the house door was locked and her father had told her she shouldn't go in alone. She refused to give up. The snowstorm grew heavier that morning. Large flakes fell steadily, blanketing the town in white and making it hard to see. Emily could barely see beyond her small yard, yet she moved with determination. She rebuilt Max's shelter with more boards, layering the blankets and clothes she had gathered. She worked tirelessly, ignoring the snow melting on her hair and the cold soaking her coat. Max stayed close to her, leaning into every hug, every stroke, and every whispered word. By late morning, Mrs. Turner came by again. She had been keeping an eye on Emily since the first day. Deeply moved by the girl's bravery, she brought hot chocolate for Emily and a warm blanket for Max. "You've done so much, Emily," she said softly. "You're a very brave little girl." Emily blushed, her eyes wide. "I just can't let him be cold. He's my best friend," she replied simply, her voice filled with sincerity. Word of Emily's devotion spread further. More neighbors came to help. Some brought firewood, others brought extra blankets, and one neighbor even offered a small heated lamp for Max's shelter. Emily politely refused some of the help, explaining that Max wanted to stay close to her and that he would feel safe with her. Her words amazed the grown-ups, who could not understand how a 7-year-old could show such responsibility and love. Meanwhile, Emily's father returned home earlier than usual that day. He had seen the messages on the community page and noticed the photos and comments about his daughter. The sight of Emily surrounded by neighbors, fiercely protecting Max despite the cold, struck him deeply. He stood at the edge of the yard, watching her care for Max with gentle but firm hands. He could see the warmth in her actions, the strength in her love, and the unwavering determination in her eyes. For the first time, he felt a sense of guilt that weighed heavily on his heart. He remembered leaving Max outside in the cold and realized how wrong he had been. The sight of Emily's dedication to the dog he had once thought of as a burden forced him to reconsider his actions. Yet he hesitated, unsure of how to admit his mistake to a child who had already shown more courage than most adults. The day wore on, and the snowstorm worsened. Max began to cough and Emily's heart sank. She knelt beside him, feeling his small body shiver despite all her efforts. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to leave his side. She whispered to him over and over, telling him he would be okay, that he was strong, and that she would protect him no matter what. At that moment, her father stepped forward. He could not bear to watch his daughter struggle while the dog she loved suffered. With trembling hands, he gently lifted Max and carried him inside. Emily watched, her eyes wide with surprise and a mix of hope.
"Daddy?"
she asked softly. "I was wrong, Emily," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I shouldn't have left Max out there. I promise I'll never do it again. He stays with us." Emily's small face lit up with a smile as she reached for Max, wrapping him in her arms once more. Max licked her face, wagging his tail, as if sensing the relief and love that now filled the house. Emily's father realized that love is not about convenience or worry. It is about caring deeply, standing by those you love and being present when it matters most. He watched as his daughter held Max, saw the joy in her eyes, and understood that her heart had taught him a lesson he had long forgotten. Neighbors continued to stop by, bringing warmth, food, and encouragement. They admired Emily's courage and her father's change of heart. Many spoke about how a small child's love had reminded them of the importance of kindness, compassion, and loyalty. Emily, shy but proud, stood beside Max and accepted the help with quiet gratitude. That night, Emily and Max sat together by the fireplace. Max curled up in the blankets, his breathing calmer, while Emily rested her head on him, feeling the warmth she had worked so hard to provide. Her father sat nearby, reflecting on the events of the past days. He reached out and gently took Emily's hand. "You are very brave," he said softly. "I'm proud of you, Emily. You showed me how much love really means." Emily smiled, resting her head back against Max. "I just wanted him to be safe," she replied simply. Her father hugged her gently, understanding that safety is more than physical. It is about love, care, and trust. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside the small house, warmth, love, and forgiveness filled every corner. Emily had proven that even a child could make a difference, that love could overcome fear and cold, and that compassion could touch the hearts of everyone around. By the time evening settled, the entire family felt closer. Max, once left in the snow, now slept peacefully inside, his body warm and safe. Emily's father, once distant and frustrated, now understood the depth of his daughter's heart. And Emily, though only 7 years old, knew that true courage came from love and loyalty, qualities that could change even the hardest hearts. That night, the little girl whispered to Max once more, "See? We're okay now. We'll never be apart like that again." Max rested his head on her lap, his tail gently thumping the floor as if agreeing completely. Emily smiled, knowing that their bond, strengthened by hardship, had become stronger than ever. The winter days slowly began to pass, and though the snow still covered the town in a thick white blanket, the warmth inside Emily's small house had grown. Max, once left shivering in the snow, now lay comfortably in his bed of blankets and pillows, wagging his tail whenever Emily came near. Emily herself felt a new sense of peace, knowing that her dog was safe and warm. Each morning she woke up with Max close by, his head resting on her small lap, and each night she tucked him in with care, whispering promises of love and protection. The story of Emily and Max had spread throughout the town. Everyone now knew about the little girl who refused to leave her German shepherd out in the snow. People in the neighborhood spoke of her courage, her dedication, and the pure love she had shown for her pet. Some said they had never seen a child so determined, so selfless, or so full of heart. Her actions had reminded them of the importance of compassion, of standing by those you love, and of showing care in small but meaningful ways. Emily's father watched all of this quietly. At first, he had been overwhelmed with guilt for leaving Max outside, but seeing the support from neighbors, and seeing how his daughter's love had touched so many, he began to understand just how special Emily truly was. He spent hours thinking about what he had learned from her, lessons about loyalty, courage, and the power of a loving heart. Slowly, he began to change. He helped Emily with Max's care without being asked. He fed him, brushed his fur, and even spent time walking him through the snow. Emily noticed the change and smiled quietly, proud that her father had finally understood. As days passed, Emily continued to care for Max with unwavering devotion. She walked him every morning, even in the coldest wind, ensuring he got exercise and fresh air. She played with him in the snow, laughing as he chased after her and rolled around happily. When the neighbors passed by, they saw Emily running alongside Max, her small figure bundled in winter clothes, her laughter ringing out across the quiet street. Max's tail wagged constantly, his joy mirrored in her bright eyes. Emily's father joined them on some walks, smiling at the sight of his daughter and the dog she loved so dearly. The bond between father, daughter, and dog had grown stronger than ever. He began to understand the depth of responsibility that comes with love, and the patience required to care for another living being. He no longer viewed Max as a burden, but as a part of the family who had brought them all closer together. The townspeople, touched by Emily's story, continued to offer support in small ways. Someone brought extra blankets for Max. Another neighbor brought a new leash and some toys. A local baker left small treats at Emily's door for both her and Max. Emily accepted everything politely but always reminded everyone, "Max belongs with me and I will care for him." Her words were gentle but firm, showing that her love for Max was unwavering. One snowy afternoon, Emily's father knelt beside her and Max in the yard. "I was wrong to leave Max outside," he said softly, his voice full of sincerity. I understand now. You taught me something important, how to love truly and care deeply. I'm proud of you, Emily. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of happiness. She hugged her father tightly and whispered, I just wanted him to be safe. That's all. Max barked happily and nuzzled against both of them as if agreeing with every word. The bond between Emily and Max had become the heart of the family. Their love and loyalty had healed old wounds, brought the father closer to his daughter, and inspired an entire community. Emily learned that even a small child could make a huge difference, that courage is measured not by strength alone but by the depth of your heart, and that love can overcome fear, cold, and uncertainty. As winter slowly gave way to the early signs of spring, Emily and Max continued their daily routines. They walked through the slowly melting snow, Max leaping happily over small puddles, Emily's laughter ringing clear in the air. The neighbors often stopped to wave or say hello, sometimes leaving small gifts for Max or offering warm encouragement to Emily. The little girl had become a symbol of hope, innocence, and the extraordinary power of a loving heart. One evening, as the sky turned shades of pink and orange with the setting sun, Emily sat on the porch with Max beside her. Her father joined them, placing a warm hand on her shoulder. Emily whispered softly to Max, See, Max? We're okay now. No more cold nights, no more fear. We're together, always. Max rested his head on her lap, his tail gently thumping the floor in contentment. The warmth between them seemed to melt all the winter's chill. Emily's story did not end there. The lessons she had taught her father, Max, and her community continued to ripple outward. People spoke about her courage and kindness long after the snow had melted. Her simple acts of love had shown everyone that even the smallest hearts could inspire the greatest changes. Emily learned that bravery comes in many forms, that loyalty is a treasure beyond measure, and that love can transform even the coldest moments into memories of warmth and hope. The house that once felt quiet and lonely now felt full of life. Max slept peacefully in his warm bed. Emily ran through the yard with joy, and her father watched with pride, knowing he had learned an important lesson from the pure heart of a 7-year-old girl. The family had been healed, strengthened, and brought closer together through the love of a little girl and her German shepherd. And as night fell, and the stars sparkled above the town, Emily, Max, and her father sat together, a family bound by trust, loyalty, and the incredible power of love. Emily whispered once more to Max, We'll always be together. Max, no matter what. Max wagged his tail, nuzzling her cheek, and Emily smiled, knowing that their bond, strengthened by courage and compassion, would last forever. The story of Emily and Max reminded everyone in the town that true love, loyalty, and care are powerful forces. They can heal hearts, change minds, and bring warmth to even the coldest winters. And for Emily, Max was not just a dog. He was her best friend, her family, and the proof that even a small heart can make a big difference in the world.